Okay, so as you probably know me, but for those of you who don't, my name's Tom. I'm a student at Plymouth University. I've been a volunteer with Moor Trees for around 4 years, and this summer I undertook my dissertation project, well last summer, sorry, with Moor Trees. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about my results, and also I'm going to look at some of the impacts of climate change for expected with woodlands, and some of the questions maybe that need answering. So as part of my environmental science bachelor's degree, I had to undertake an original research project. So with the help of my university supervisor and some of the staff and volunteers at Moor Trees, I developed a project which would seek to understand the mechanisms governing the stress and the growth of some of our tree saplings that we planted out. This took place at Houghton Down, and I looked at the trees which were from that were planted in 2013, 2014.
And Houghton Down, that's the Silhain?
Yes, that's the Silhain plantation, which we were just talking about. So the rationale of the project, which would look at the identifying the response of trees to external stress, is there still a very poor understanding of the impact of environmental stresses on tree physiology. And understanding the impacts of these stresses will help in understanding and making a bit clearer some of the structure and the dynamic of woodlands. And so there's also a demand to establish, like Graham was just talking about, there's a demand to establish a great link between what we're doing at Moor Trees, woodland restoration, and actually science. So we have a bit of evidence for it. So the basic aims of my project were to identify the principal stresses faced by tree saplings which we planted at Houghton Down. So in the winter of 2013-2014. The project took place at Houghton Down, which is located at Silhain, and the site consists of 4.82 hectares of former agricultural land, which is located around 5 kilometres from Newton Abbot, so it's in the Team Valley. So Moor Trees is planted at this location for previous planting seasons, and my research made use of the first area that's planted, which you can see on the screen here. This is a sort of a bulk aerial view of it. So here you can see there's basically a map of the site. So you see the red line here, you can see the site, and it's basically dominated by a big hill or down. And you can see from the map there, it's located on the eastern side of the moor, just outside the National Park boundary. So I collected field data from July to August last year, and I used random sampling to select and collect data from over 200 tree saplings. So it was quite a lot of work. And my project will look at 3 species of tree, and these would be peduncular oak, or English oak, which is Quercus robur, small leaf lime, which is a new one that we planted due to the ash dieback, and needing another tree to be a dominant tree in our planting sites, and field maple. So to collect the data, I made a series of measurements. I measured the length of the annual tree shoot growth, taking the top of the tree. So I did this using a measuring tape and burning caliper, which is probably known small little thing to make precise measurements. I also measured the stress of the trees, but I did this using a photosynthesis efficiency analyzer. And this is basically a piece of equipment which basically measures the photosynthesis, the efficiency of the photosynthetic reaction in leaves. And this is thought to give quite a good indication of the general stress of plants. And you can see there's a picture of me here using it in the field. It's quite a simple thing actually. It sounds a bit complicated, but you just stick a clip onto a leaf, you leave it for half an hour, you dark adapt it, you come back with a machine, remove the clip, So it has a bit of light, press a button, a light beam at a certain wavelength get fired at the leaf. What comes back gives you a good indication of the stress of the tree and how the reaction works and how efficient it is. So as well as that, I also used, tried to understand the water content in soils. So I did this using a feed probe. So you can see this picture there, me holding the feed probe. It's basically a pommel instrument you stick in the ground beside the tree. Obviously it only measures the top bit of the soil, but in the young saplings, the roots aren't going to be too deep, so it'll give you a good indication of the soil condition around the roots. So as well as that, I recorded the height and the composition of vegetation immediately surrounding the sapling. So I did this using a sward stick, which is basically a bit of plywood laid over a ruler. So it's a bit of plywood with a hole in it, stick a ruler over it, stick it down, gives you a good idea of the average height of the vegetation. And then also used a quadrat to work out what was there, what species. And then finally I also recorded the slope angle at each tree sapling. So I used an inclinometer, which is basically a wheel, and it gives you press it like this and it gives you a good indication of the angle. So yeah, I did that. And I looked at the direction of the slope using a compass. So yeah, I tried to cover all the bases there. It's a lot of stuff, but yeah, so that's how I did it.
A lot of measurements there.
Okay, so here are the results. So first of all, I'm just going to give you a quick, for people who are not sort of practiced up on reading this sort of graphs. So these blocks are basically, it's called the interquartile range, and it gives you an idea of the variance of the data. So the bigger the bar, the more varied the values within that. So, for instance, this small leaf line here has quite a varied amount of growth, you can see. The middle line, which you can see is the line intersecting it, is called the median, and that's basically the middle value. So all the data, that's the middle value. And these asterisks here they're called outliers, and they're basically anomalous values. So they're the values that fall outside the expected range of where most of the data lies. So yeah, what basically we can see is there a significantly greater shoot growth on the north-facing aspect, which is in blue, and which is area 2 on the map, compared to the south-facing aspect. So the red bars here, and area 1. So you can see, yeah, for all 3 tree species, so significantly greater growth on the north-facing slope and the south-facing slope, which is quite interesting in itself. But there's also some differences between the tree species. So small leaf lime was the most successful on the north-facing slope, with a high variance in growth. But yeah, you can see it's the highest tree there, the greatest growth. With growth, looking, yeah, so the average growth is 150 millimeters, and then if you compare that to the oak, it's less than 50, so it's quite a big difference. And interestingly, the field maple was the most successful on the south-facing slope. So yes, there's quite a big difference. That's going to be a quite big thing.
Just remember, so 50 to 100 millimetres, that's what, 5, 10 centimetres?
Yeah.
And that's the main bit that's growing, is it? The main,
yeah, so I'd look
the
at
main shoot.
Yeah, the main shoot.
So it seems to be growing anyway.
Yeah. Definitely growing.
Tom,
Sorry, please give it.
Have you got any ideas why the more outliers to be so recorded than the aspects? They're more on the side.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, to
Just
be honest.
chance.
I think, yeah, it could be just chance. I didn't look too much at the outliers. The statistics I used sort of took them into account, so too much. But yeah, I'm not really too sure.
I guess that's the nature of outliers. Really.
Maybe it's just, maybe the planting methods will make more of a difference on the south facing slope, but you don't have
Yeah.
So
And what do you think is the reason that they grew better on the north-facing slope?
Just about to come through.
Good props. The way the data's presented, so the thin skinny line, that is maximum to minimum, and then the bar, the back cylinder is from the 25% to 75%.
Instant 25%. So the majority, yes. So this line here is basically all the values, so everything reflected. And this block here is the first quarter to the third quarter, so it's the bulk of the data.
Nice spray actually. Yeah, good idea of the spread really, don't you, for the data.
So in order to understand some of the differences in growth between aspects, I compared some of the environmental variables I collected, which were taken on both the north and the south facing slope. So you can see on the first graph that the slope angle was significantly greater on the south facing slope than the north facing slope. And obviously you've got a few more exceptions to that rule, so maybe it was a bit more varied. Actually not. Actually not, it wasn't. But that's quite a clear result. Anyway, you've got a greater slope angle on the south facing slope. And then the second graph, you can see where you've got more available water in the soil around on the north facing slope. So again, that's fairly clear. So you've got shallow slope angles on the north facing slope and greater water content in the soils. So as well as that, you also had greater thickness and height surrounding vegetation on the south facing slope, interestingly, where there's less water. So these are sort of quite key differences: water content, surrounding vegetation, and the angle of the slope.
Excuse me, is the difference in the water content because of the difference in the slope?
Yes,
Yeah.
It's just trying to do that to get a picture of why there might be differences. There also might be differences. I mean, it's quite a complex picture because you can have differences in temperature between aspects, differences in nutrient concentrations, differences in light levels, differences in nutrients because of the slope angle. But I think these are probably the main, or at least explain quite a good proportion of the changes in growth. Obviously you can't capture everything, but I'll try to capture these some stuff that hopefully.
And I think that's right, because I think anybody's planted there, it's quite a free draining site.
Yeah.
If you remember, one of the winters we planted there was really very, very wet, and yet, compared to some of the sites we didn't get very muddy, and we think it's because it's actually on a limestone. There's a limestone there, so it's quite free draining, so it's soil moisture. So content can be quite important water availability.
So as well as the differences in growth between the aspects, which Josh was talking about, there's also a big difference in the growth response to the soil water between the different species. So you can see the small leaf line, which is the black line, showed a significant positive correlation of its growth to soil water content. So you can see on the bottom, you can see the available soil water. So as that increased, the growth increased, and it's fairly linear actually. Jungle oak, or the English oak, also showed a positive correlation, and the significance of the positive correlation is denoted by these aspects here. So these are the significant ones. So the oak was also significant, but the response to the growth to the soil water wasn't as significant as the small leaf line, for instance. So for every increase in soil water content, it did stick up that much growth. And interestingly, there's no correlation at all with the water content in the soils and the field metal. So it's quite different. It seems to have quite a different, liking and a different physiology.
So it's quite a strong effect with the small leaf line.
Yeah, it seems to really respond to water. So yes, as well as the, I also looked at the stress. So it's been clear whilst there's no difference, there's no positive correlation between, or any correlation at all between the oak and the lime. So as the water increase, there was no difference in the stress. You know, it didn't seem to be any, you know, any sort of significant difference. However, interestingly, for the field maple, when the soil water increased, you actually got an increase in stress, which was sort of counter to what I thought you'd expect. So maybe I looked at sort of thinking, well, are they receiving too much water? So yes, I sort of looked to indicate that certain areas the field maple actually had too much water. That's what it seemed to indicate anyway, and was likely suffering with waterlogging stress. So the waterlogging is quite sort of, you sort of think water is always a good thing for trees, but you know, I suppose it depends on the physiology, and waterlogging stress can starve roots of oxygen, and it basically it cuts off the nutrient and water supply to the leaves. It means there's a reduction of photosynthesis. So,
I guess it depends on the tree species as
yeah,
well, does it?
exactly. Yeah, I mean, willow have lots of different adaptations where they can gain oxygen, especially. That seems to be the main difference between tolerant species and not tolerant species that can just access the oxygen, which goes down dramatically in the soil when you have water. So yes, it seems to look as if you know the field maple would be quite badly stressed by too much water in some of the wetter areas of Amsterdam.
We're not talking about serious waterlogging, are we, Tom? I mean, this
No,
is sort of,
this
you
is
wouldn't really notice it, just
No.
not like a soggy,
It's not, no,
older...
I mean, yeah, it's a sort of, obviously these are snapshots.
Yeah.
This is just a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
So obviously that's it's not sort of permanent waterlogging,
No.
so you have, you know, vegetation that suits into the waterlogging conditions. So yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, go on.
No way.
Okay, so in order to check if waterlogged soils was a sort of reasonable explanation for, because you know it could be anything, it could be just sort of autocorrelation. For explaining this enhanced stress, I had a look at some of the rainfall totals for Hator, which is the nearest weather station I could find. I couldn't find any Met Office ones nearby, but I thought it was a fairly good, it was a fairly well maintained weather station. So yeah, and I had a look at it, and basically the rainfall record showed precipitation during July and August, which is when I collected my data, was 32% and 87% above the long-term, the 1971 to 2000 average. So, which is quite interesting. So actually there might be some explanation of why there was waterlogging. So you can see the red line here shows the 2015 rainfall totals, precipitation in millimetres, and the blue line shows average, basically the 1971 to 2000 average. You can see actually it was a pretty wet year, but particularly in July and August, you got a big peak in rainfall.
When were you recording your results?
Recording July and August.
Yeah, there's lots of rainy days out there.
Yeah, a lot of wet. I had to give up at some point. Sort of head into the cafe. Nice.
At least you got them. I do the same thing then.
Yeah. There's no doubt. Back there.
Sorry, not in my wrong.
Can we go back? Back again. That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
So
sorry.
as well as the rainfall amounts, the soil structure was also supporting the water volume. The soil at the site consists of a fine layer of soil. So you can see the 0 to 25 metres. It belongs to it's a series called the Trasham series. So it consists of this fine layer of soil, which sits on top of this strong rocky layer, which I think we all remember from farming. The spade hitting the rock. So this contrasting layer is known to reduce the downward movement of water, meaning the water content in these soils is more dependent on the slope angle and the amount of rainfall. So consequently, the flatter areas of the house and down can become saturated, whilst those areas on slopes can drain the rain more easily, and are actually at risk of drying out. quite easily. So in other words, the trees at Houghton Down are particularly sensitive to the rainfall amounts and the slope angle, which I think we're finding pretty much when we go and check that.
Yeah.
That seems to be evidence seems to bear that out. So yeah, so here's a sort of diagram I made up which basically explains that process. So, so you can see the soil structure, and the flat areas, water has nowhere to go, it just sits there. So if you have a period of heavy rain, it's got nowhere to go. And on the steeper slopes, you know, it just moves laterally, so it flushes off the other side. So the soil is really sort of powdery and dry. You know, to yes, I picked lots of data covering lots of different aspects, but the main conclusions are there's higher growth on the north-facing slope than the south-facing slope. With the trees do, you know, particularly well on that north-facing slope, particularly small leaf lime. And field maple did the best on the south-facing slope. And differences are due to, obviously, like I said, they're a complex combination of factors, but they're in part due to differences in water content, the slope angle, and some of the rainfall. So so with small leaf lime, the growth of the field maple was less sensitive to the dry areas than Houghton Down. So field maple experienced a mild stress during July and August 2015 as a result of too much water in the wetter areas of Houghton Down. Waterlogging occurred in these areas due to elevated rainfall, a rainfall-sensitive soil, and a shallow slope angle. Anyway, I'm going to move on now. Does anybody have any more questions about nuclear plants?
Loads of data.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a bit about climate change and some of the implications associated. So these are projected changes in climate by 2080, and this data is from DEFRA. This is changes from what we currently experience, so long-term averages. So you can see what's the annual difference in rainfall is not expected to be, you know, it's not particularly great. It's sort of either side as what we've got now. You can see the seasonal impacts, which are predicted to be, you know, highly significant, particularly in the southwest region. So you can see that in winter you have an increase in precipitation. Seasonal precipitation is going to be 10 to 30% what we currently get by 2080. And you can see summer you've got a projected reduction by between 20 and 50%. So I mean that, you think of 2080 in human terms, that's, you know, it's a lifetime, but for a tree, that's not really on at all. You know, so, you know, that's, well, it's definitely something to think about. So as well as dramatic alterations in the seasonal rainfall totals, there's also meant to be projected to be increases in the severity of extreme events. So it's actually, as well as these seasonal increases and decreases in changes in precipitation, there's meant to be a lot of variability within that. So there's expected to be a greater frequency and intensity of rainfall events, as well as a greater intensity and duration of droughts during summer and winter actually. So,
A fantastic project. I know you got a very high mark, but we're very pleased that you did it, and I'm exceptionally pleased that you're going to be hopefully carrying on some of the research.
Yeah, really good.
So, were there any more questions? You have a question?
Tom, I don't know if you're doing more work, but would there be any mileage is particularly interested in the correlation between the gradient and drainage of, related to south and north facing?
Yeah.
At the gradient level, with the soil substructure and stone of Hampton Down.
Yeah.
Would there be any mileage in the future for a project similar with a different soil structure planting style that Moor Trees have done to compare
To
those.
compare how
Like for like.
yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how the soil structure alters
Those
those two
variables.
things. Yeah, no, definitely, there's definitely room for that.
I think what we'd like to see, and in a way this is our first time actually having some research on some of our sites, but is to increase, we had a go at monitoring, just, the go of the trees, we did a kind of a test run, but I think one of the things that we're looking for in the next sort of few years is to do monitoring, volunteers, maybe some citizen science, so to look at, say, at how things are changing, so this is very much a sort of the start, hopefully, of some research that we're going to be carrying on and hopefully developing over the next few years.
Right. I'm just wondering if you will look at natural regeneration in Highland.
Yeah, I'd quite like to. Yeah, no, I think that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Providence will have a good part to play here.
Did you say on the highway?
Yeah, if he's going to look at how trees are reacting to water levels up on the high wall, then I would imagine, local provenance from that actual aspect would be really interesting to monitor.
Yeah, Providence would be quite interesting actually. I had some ideas of looking at, is there any differences between the performance of the provenances that we collect? So if I was to plant some ones that collect, some oaks that collected from Henbury, would they be different from, say, Newbridge? So yeah, I mean, there's so many questions. I'm still sort of trying to narrow it down to something that I can do, because there's so much you could do really. So yeah, I think that's it. To look at.
Well, thank you very much. So that was an excellent talk, and hopefully some food for thought.
There's a lot of yellow.
The yellow, yeah, so that's, overall, so you've got some of the coastal areas and the northern area, precipitation could go down between 0 and 10% overall annually. Obviously in the central region that's expected to increase, and I guess that's because you'll probably have higher frequency of big storms which are caused by, thunderstorms. But I think the takeaway message from here is sort of the big differences in seasonal rainfall. I mean, they're quite big numbers, aren't they, actually, 10-30%?
Yeah, massive.
I think that's right, the annual is plus or minus 10%, whereas the seasonal, certainly for the summer, is looking like, maybe even minus 50%.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Quite a difference, isn't it? What I take from that is that we need to help our soils build a capacity to maintain moisture as well as structure as well.
Yeah.
And they're saying that generally about flooding anyway, to just slow down the movement of water as much as possible.
And that's why woodlands are important, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So,
so because that is something that, as you go from, say, a grass, say like a Houghton down, to something where you've got the trees producing a leaf litter every year, you would expect to see increases in soil organic matter, which should help that moisture retention, so it'll be interesting.
next slide. So climate change is, what we're just discussing, it can pose a significant challenge to woodlands. So one of these is greatest disturbance. So, for instance, there's likely to be changes in the type and frequency of these disturbance events, so these storm events. So you've got, flooding, increased likelihood of flooding with an increase in rainfall, increased forest fires, if the ground's tinder dry, an increase in fires, and also storms. So, wind throw with increased energy in the atmosphere, you're actually going to get increase in wind. So obviously these destructive events have massive implications for woodlands. For woodland process as well. So it's going to change a lot in the dynamic of woodlands. So as well as that, there's also going to be predictably increases in more pests and disease. In addition to changes in the severity of the disturbance events, For example, there's expected to be an increase in disease and pest outbreaks due to warm winters, so they're basically not going to be dying off. So when you have that winter period where they, you can get rid of them, these warm winters are encouraging them to sort of stay around and increase. So, for instance, the fungal pathogen known as Phytophthora ramorum, which is responsible for a condition known as sudden oak death, is predicted to increase. So, I mean, that's another challenge which oak woodlands will face in the future, and all woodlands actually. So also changes in tree performance. So alterations in the growing conditions due to elevated CO2. So I couldn't factor that into my research, but that's probably quite an interesting look at how trees respond to increased CO2. So there's going to be alterations in soil moisture, as we talked about. Alterations in temperature, so temperatures are generally increasing. Alterations in the soil nutrient concentration, so as you get greater increase in rainfall, actually you might get alterations in nutrient concentrations. So there's lots of aspects which are going to change and alter the growth of trees and how they respond to their environment. So impact on the suitability of certain species for certain areas. There'll be some areas where actually that's going to change, and if we're looking at some of the projected changes in rainfall, some of those suitabilities that we have now are going to change. Yeah, and it's going to change the areas best suited for trees to absorb atmospheric carbon for growth rates. So as well as that, there's also going to be an alteration in the composition of woodlands. So changes in the climatic conditions are likely to shift the range of suitability of some species, potentially leading to dramatic alterations in the composition of woodland plants and animal communities. So, because trees are sort of the foundation of most ecosystems, or the woodland ecosystem, they're going to have profound impacts on basically the whole woodland environment. So invertebrates, the fungi, lots of impacts on bird populations. And it's predicted these changes that we're going to see are going to increase the populations of invasive species. So actually, invasives have a broader tolerance in general, and that's why they're invasive. They're able to stick around another native species like a niche. But actually, this weather is going to could start to change these systems. So we might see more invasives moving into these systems.
And so just give us an indication of timescale. I mean, I know it's sort of dramatic changes, but we wouldn't see it, that rate of change being overnight, for example. And this is over a period of, 100 years?
It's 100 years. I mean, it's quick, but I mean, because
it's slow and
it's slow. I mean, so you're not going to see it, you're not going to go out next year and then suddenly see massive changes. But over time, you see changes.
So it could be kind of, your grandkids.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
That might see some change.
Yeah.
And it would happen slowly, presumably, as it would sort of say, oaks maybe don't recruit as much, something else comes in, those sorts of things. It would be, as you say, it wouldn't just be one day, it's suddenly gone to beaches. Because trees take time to shift their geographical position.
Yeah, and that's why it's quite important for Moor Trees, because, I mean, trees don't move massively quickly, but there's at all, they don't really shift their rates really quickly, but, the climate is going to alter. I mean, it's not massively quick, but it's probably quicker than the trees can move. So next slide. So here are some sort of quotes which sort of basically highlight that challenge, and sort of, let's highlight the challenge. So wood planted now and in the future must be resilient and suited both the current conditions and the changing climate for the rest of the 21st century. This is Ray et al. 2010, writing about the impact of climate change on forests. So considering this, it's vital that there be some understanding of what climate resilient Devon would look like. So, what would it, how things are going to respond. And in this context, it was important that Moor Trees' vision for a more wooded Dartmoor, so you've always got the vision, sort of starts to consider the predicted changes in climate, and the planting schemes are in some sense future-proofed. So that in sort of 100 years' time, they don't sort of die off. So there needs to be some probably some consideration.
Do you know what species would be suitable or more suitable?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is we don't. There's some research in forestry about the physiology of trees, but actually in general there's not really much information. I think, well, many people say the small leaf lime has a big range of tolerance. So that is a potential tree that could do well. But we still don't really know enough. That's the problem, we don't really know enough about trees to actually get all the impacts we've got to say. So
I think keep planting a whole bunch of different ones and something will come out.
Yeah. I think that's it really. I think one of the things that we always try to do in Moor Trees is sort of expand existing fragments of woodland and link those up. So therefore you're creating some sort of corridor where trees can sort of go. One of the things that's been said about climate change, although the modelling is necessarily imperfect, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with climate change. One thing that's been cited is that our sort of sites of biodiversity, if you like, are so fragmented that it's hard for species to move through as their range maybe expands or contracts or moves further northwards. So by infilling those fragments, they'll say with woodland, you're then allowing those changes to take place, so that wood will slowly change over those hundreds of years, type of thing. And I think for us that's a better bet than saying, oh look, these models suggest we're going to have beech here in 200 years, let's plant beech, because we don't really know, and I'd rather that nature took its course and allowing it to take its course, rather than us sort of gazing into our crystal ball and saying, well, this is going to happen, because you just don't really know, actually. And I think some of the stuff they have done with predictions, it's very hard to actually predict exactly. In a very regional sense, you can say what's going to happen within, say, Europe, but to say what's going to happen, say, on Dartmoor, I think it's quite difficult, isn't it?
It is difficult, but I suppose we should try and make some indication.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're very much trying to facilitate those changes taking place, whatever they might be.
Yeah. Okay, so the next quote is global change exacerbates the multiple stresses trees face. Represents a complex challenge for plants dwelling in already stressful ecosystems. You saw from my results that actually these environments are really pretty stressful for trees, and they're pretty well adapted. But you're going to get new combinations of both direct and indirect stresses. With combinations that maybe haven't been seen before. So it's likely the woodlands will face a unique combination of threats and stresses. So consequently, monitoring of Moor Trees plantations is not only beneficial for understanding and documenting the ecological changes that are already happening, and the ecological changes that woodland creation brings, so all the benefits that you get from woodland creation, but could actually help in providing an early warning system for detecting some of the climate-driven changes in Devon's woodlands. So if we have a record of what's in the plantations, actually maybe we'll see it change if we have a long-term data set. So maybe you might start to see, small changes in our plantations, which would be quite interesting. So lastly, our knowledge of stress tolerance is fragmentary. So it challenges our capacity to anticipate the potential impact of climate change in plant communities. This quote highlights the large gaps in our knowledge at present. It makes clear we can't mitigate or plan for the likely impacts on woodlands which are associated with climate change, because we don't really know enough about them. So I guess that makes it clear that we need to really basically do a bit more research. So I'm currently in the process of planning some more research on Moor Trees as a postgraduate student. My aim is to plant trees in the high moor and monitor the impact of altered rainfall on the stress, the growth, carbon allocation and characteristics of different tree species. I envisage that results will highlight and clarify the composition and character of likely woodlands assemblages of trees which will return to Dartmoor. So basically trying to understand some of the water tolerance of the species. whilst also providing information on the water tolerance of species. So results should help determine the climate change adaptability of certain species. So are some species like, do they do they have a small sort of narrow range where they can survive? Basically trying to understand the tolerance of species. And characterise the impacts of altered soil moisture conditions on woodland character and the atmospheric drawdown potential of the moor. So from an ecological perspective, if left to nature, the moor would be a jigsaw of different habitats. You've got bog, wet woodlands, your oak woodland. My projects will aim to determine at what point does the soil become too wet for oak woodland and what are the implications for future planting and gardening. So anyway, I'd like to say thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody who helped me on my project last year. Because, if I hadn't had your help, I wouldn't have had the really good project I did. So anyway, thank you to all the volunteers and for all the staff to make it possible. And thank you for listening. And are there any questions?
Just going back to the stresses and everything, I mean, obviously each tree, because it's not mulched around, is growing in a competitive environment.
Yeah.
And I guess, sometimes you're thinking, it's north facing, it's whatever. But of course, if it's trying to compete for the scarce nutrients with other stuff, the other stuff might be finding it even worse. And that's why on the north side it's, do you know what? It could be worse. Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
The grass isn't doing much.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab those nutrients.
Exactly.
Which is competition.
And that's why it's so complicated, because you've got competition with the nutrients, and we don't really know what plants are really more competitive to certain tree species, and it's complex. It's just
Did any die?
no. There's some deaths.
What, in your sample?
In my sample,
Oh.
some deaths. I think there were oaks.
Yeah.
That ones down the south-western slope.
In the south face?
And I think what you've shown today is really the sort of the summary of all your results, because there's an awful lot of stats in there to come out with those key things. And exactly what you said, there's so many variable factors in all of this. That's the world of ecology, really, isn't it? And you have to try and factor out, and there's quite a lot of stats to try and do that. But we didn't think people would necessarily. But there is an awful lot of work that went into